The journalist Olof had investigated this special police squad and had followed the careers of its members.
In
1983, the squad had to be broken up because it had become uncontrollable. Since then, the police force of Normal was reformed into two groups, League A and League B, and the members of the baseball league were incorporated into both.
Normal Police is an important division in Stockholm. It's based in the Normal district close to the seat of government. Several officers who have sympathies with the extreme right are part of this division. In general, the Swedish police have leanings towards the Social Democrats, of whom Olof Palme was the leader.
At the beginning of the 80s, the extremists of the right in the police force tended to be the youngest and the most brutal. That's how their colleagues perceived them. They were a law unto themselves and organized special evenings which they called friendship nights.
And what did they used to do?
There, they'd listen to invited fascist guest speakers who spouted extreme right policies. Then they'd all dance to German military music.
They even adopted the Hitler salute. Only hours after the assassination, League A of the Normal Police held such an evening. According to several witnesses, the officer who presided even proposed a toast to the murder of Palme, and nobody raised objections. Obliged to explain, this chief said that in his way he had been paying tribute to the good work of his men on the night of the murder. Because this was an evening held in private, no inquiry was ever carried out on this chief or his associates. The day of the killing, Hans Holmer, Stockholm's overall police chief, took charge of the murder inquiry. This was the same man who had created the baseball league and who'd been proud of the squad's work. Holmer had equipped them with automatic weapons, which are banned in Sweden. They must have been acquired illegally. He even fitted his office with bulletproof windows without the permission of his superiors. Palme obtained the windows, the weapons, and a large stock of walkie-talkies from a certain P.J. Karlström, a former police officer, a man of the extreme right who'd become an arms dealer. There are many photographs in existence which show him executing the Hitler salute, some taken in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. In his arsenal, the same type of bullets which killed Palme could be found. Karlström had been in hospital after an appendicitis operation, but signed himself out on the day of the murder against the advice of his doctor. That night, he's known to have made contact at least twice with one of the mysterious characters who carried walkie-talkies. An internal police dossier profiles Karlström as cold, insensitive, and perfectly capable of murder. One of his company offices is situated in this building on the route the killer took to flee the scene. It was around here that the witness who'd given chase lost the trail. The prosecutor in charge of the affair would exclaim in 1994 that Karlström had no alibi for the time of the crime. But no inquiry was made against Karlström because he was supposed to be in hospital on that day. The house just opposite. Two of the men with walkie-talkies had taken up position just in front. A colleague of Karlström lives there. Both he and Karlström are members of the same gun club. Björn Skogsfeldt, the club's shooting instructor, is also an extremist who especially idolized the Chilean junta. The night of the murder, he was in police car number 3230. It wasn't a regular squad car, but he'd used it to go and move his own private car because it was parked illegally. He'd only been able to find a second parking spot, which was also illegal. That's how he'd found himself close to the murder scene. During the time he moved his own car, he'd left police car 3230 at the head of the stairway that the killer took during his escape. It precisely overlooks the scene of the shooting. And it's exactly where Skogsfeldt's personal car was parked that the witness in pursuit saw the fleeing killer for the last time. At the moment the shots were fired, Skogsfeldt got into the police car and drove off. The circumstances surrounding the bullets which killed Olof Palme are equally strange. One of them wasn't found until 37 hours after the murder, yet it was only 4 meters away from where Palme had fallen. The second bullet was found immediately and was taken as evidence by one of the investigating policemen. Both bullets had been cleaned before being finally presented to the laboratory. This is the information sheet put out by the head of the police inquiry. It reads 23:23, the first alert. 10 seconds later, the first squad car arrives on the scene. This is in total contradiction with the witness statement given by Leif Lundqvist. He tried to call the emergency number from his car immediately after hearing the shots. Lundqvist was put on hold for 80 seconds. When an officer finally responded, the line was cut, apparently by a third person. The office of the head of police communications is in the same building as that of the arms dealer Karlström. There are photographs of this police communications chief also making the Hitler salute, and he's also a member of the same shooting club. Hans Zetterlund was on duty at the police radio communication center. This is unusual. Normally, he's on patrol in vehicle 3230, the same car that was parked on the killer's getaway route just before the murder. He too is a member of the gun club. Emergency calls take priority over all others, but Zetterlund doesn't take this into account. He replies to a call from a taxi rank rather than calls from the murder scene. When the taxi driver reports gunshots, Zetterlund hangs up. It seems that Hans Zetterlund went even further in delaying response to the assassination. Brothers Kari and Pertti Puittinen, 2 information technology specialists, have made inquiries into the dysfunction at the police radio center and interviewed Hans Zetterlund.
He didn't even call an ambulance, although he knew that a man had been shot down. He didn't report the incident as the rules require. Equally, he didn't inform the superior officer in charge that evening.
The emergency services were astounded that the police hadn't called an ambulance to the scene. Their call was recorded. You're not aware of what happened? Reply, no, we haven't received any calls. That call was made 2 minutes after the police are known to have arrived on the scene. The lack of police response was astounding. An alert was certainly given at that time, but it concerned a Volvo which was being driven dangerously. When a crime involves a firearm, the alert number 1 should be broadcast and repeated at regular intervals. What happened on this occasion was exactly the opposite. Zetterlund had 3 levels of alert to choose from, but he opted for the lowest priority level for the murder.
Alerts are normally destined for all the on-duty officers, and regulations stipulate they should be repeated for those who don't hear it the first time round, or for those whose radios have been switched off for a while. But in this case, the alert was not repeated on the regular waveband. In fact, it was only retransmitted on a special frequency. Consequently, only those police patrols who heard the first broadcast were aware of the situation. So the majority of the response force available in the city center were completely unaware of what had befallen their Prime Minister. And none of these divisions elsewhere in the city were alerted. At Solna, for example, only 2 kilometers from the crime scene, no one got the news until much later.
So no one was out hunting the killer. Bus and taxi drivers knew more of what was going on than the police did. No orders came from police headquarters. In violation of all the rules, only 2 police phone operators were handling calls relating to the murder. The 8 others on duty continued meant to handle mundane, non-urgent calls. The first officer to arrive at the scene confirms that the official registers have been falsified.
I'm ready to swear on the Bible that I arrived at 11:30. According to the official version, I'm supposed to have got there at 11:23. This question has tormented me for years, and I am able to prove what I say, and that the official register is inaccurate.
The register, which notes the moment of police intervention, is full of errors. Police car number 3230 is supposed to have been alerted at 11:23 and to have arrived only seconds later. That's to say 7 minutes before Gösta Söderström. But the radio communications centre acknowledges that indeed it was Gösta who was the first officer to arrive. The contradiction is flagrant.
This affair was wrapped in the greatest secrecy. I asked to reread the report that I myself had made that evening. My request was refused, but they showed me a typewritten report which stated that at exactly 11:23, 14 police vehicles had received the alert signal. That is totally false.
Another contradiction. The control report sheet listing police action is equally strange. The original has disappeared, but we've managed to trace a copy. Age said, the initials of Hans Zetterland, indicating that he had sent the first patrol car to the murder scene at 11:23. But note, the initials are preceded by a star.
When a police officer enters an alert time into the system, which differs by more than 7 minutes from the real time marked by the police station central clock, the computer automatically inserts a star alongside.
So why falsify the time of the alert? Could it mean that someone allowed 7 minutes to pass to allow the killer to make his getaway? Or could it simply imply that the police, in place of their official radios, were using walkie-talkies? It was on the walkie-talkie channel that photographer Åke Malmström heard about the murder of the Prime Minister. It proves that at least one official police message was passed by walkie-talkie. To this day, no one's been able to establish who made that call. The driver of the police car, whose number ends with 520, was parked under the window of a witness, Sunniva Tellestam. He saw that this policeman too was using a walkie-talkie. The registration number of the car was finally certified to be 1520, the same car which was stopped by the witness who'd pursued the killer. The witness asked the police team in this car to try and catch the killer. They said they would try, although at that moment they couldn't yet have been officially informed of the murder. The radio message supposedly hadn't been made. The driver of this patrol car was also a member of the extreme right. At no time were the police to interview the many witnesses who were around. The Danish secret police, the Säpo, were given the task of following the leads which directly implicated the police force in the affair. The Säpo was created under the German Gestapo in the 1940s and had since been criticized for having affinities with the extreme right. Many members of the Säpo are on record as having voiced antipathy for Olof Palme. In the 1970s, the director of the Säpo was none other than Hans Holmer, the founder of the Baseball League. Several indications lead us to believe that the Säpo knew of an assassination plan before it took place. But in this affair, it appears that despite the indications that point directly at them, the police have been protected. It was journalists who found and interviewed the witnesses, not the police. The many witnesses were never taken seriously by the authorities. Some have been intimidated and threatened, and live in fear even today. We go back to 1 minute before the assassination. The two witnesses who saw the killer lurking in the shop doorway still refuse to appear before the camera.